Yes, there was a year without a summer in the 1800s. It was 1816. People in many parts of the world, especially in the northern hemisphere, remember that year for its shockingly cold temperatures. It was a really strange time. Summer just didn't happen for a lot of people. Crops died. Food became scarce. It was a tough period, and folks didn't even know why it was happening back then. It truly made a lasting mark on history and on the lives of countless people. The year 1816 stands out in history. It earned a very fitting, but also very grim, nickname the Year Without a Summer. For many, especially in parts of North America and Europe, the summer months never really arrived. Instead of warm sunshine and ripening crops, people saw something completely different. They saw cold, they saw rain, they saw frost, sometimes they even saw snow in July and August. Imagine that. It's supposed to be the warmest time of year. People expect long, sunny days. They expect their fields to grow food, but in 1816 things just did not go that way. The weather was just all wrong. In New England, for instance, temperatures stayed really low. Even in June, there were widespread frosts. These frosts were bad. They killed young plants in the fields. And farmers woke up to see their corn and potatoes blackened and dead. It was a disaster for them. And it didn't just happen once. It happened again and again through the summer months. People in places like Pennsylvania and New York were also hit hard. They saw snow flurries in June. They watched ice form on ponds in July. It was totally out of character for the season. The usual heat of summer was simply absent. This wasn't just a local cold snap. It was much bigger than that. Over in Europe, the situation was similar, if not worse in some areas. France had heavy rains that led to widespread crop failures. Ireland and Britain also saw unusually cold and wet weather. Germany experienced hailstorms and severe flooding. The Swiss Alps had massive amounts of snow and ice, even in August. Rivers swelled. Villages were destroyed by floods and mudslides. It was like nature had gone completely haywire. People were confused and scared. They had never seen anything like it. Farmers suffered terribly. Their livelihood depended on good weather. They planted their seeds in spring, hoping for a bountiful harvest in late summer and fall. But in 1816, their hopes were dashed. The seeds either didn't sprout or the young plants froze. If they managed to grow a little, more frost or heavy rain would often wipe them out. This meant very little food was produced. For families who grew their own food, this was a direct threat to their survival. For those who bought food, prices quickly went sky high because there was so little to buy. Imagine living through this. People relied on basic things like wheat for bread, corn for meals, and potatoes. When these staples failed, hunger set in very fast. News traveled slowly back then. There was no internet, no instant global communication. So people in one region might not have known that others far away were suffering the exact same strange weather. They might have thought it was just their bad luck. They might have searched for local reasons, perhaps even religious ones, to explain such an abnormal year. The skies were often strange too. Some accounts describe very hazy, reddish sunsets. The sun itself looked dimmer. It was like a veil had been pulled across the sky, making everything feel a bit eerie and dim. This unusual atmospheric condition wasn't understood at the time. It was just another part of the weirdness that defined 1816. This lack of understanding made things even harder. People didn't know what was causing it. Was it God's wrath? Was it some shift in the earth? Was it just a freak year? Without a scientific explanation, fear and superstition could easily take hold. The impact was felt on every level of society. It wasn't just cold weather, it was a whole cascade of problems that affected economies, health, and social stability. It truly was a year when summer simply didn't arrive, leaving a profound and unsettling memory for generations. The reason behind the year without a summer was something most people at the time had no clue about. It was a volcano, a huge one, far away in Indonesia. Its name was Mount Tambora, and it erupted with incredible force in April 1815. This wasn't just any eruption. It was one of the biggest, most powerful volcanic explosions in recorded human history. It threw so much stuff into the atmosphere that it changed the weather across the globe for a whole year and more. Tambora is on an island called Sumbawa in what is now Indonesia. When it erupted, it was devastating for the local area. Many thousands of people died directly from the blast, the ash, and the tsunamis that followed. But its reach extended far beyond those islands. The eruption sent a massive plume of ash, dust, and gases, especially sulfur dioxide, high up into the stratosphere. That's the part of the atmosphere that's very high, above where regular weather happens. Once in the stratosphere, these tiny particles and gas molecules didn't just fall back down right away. They spread out. The sulfur dioxide mixed with water vapor to form sulfuric acid aerosols. These tiny reflective particles acted like a giant global sunshade. They drifted around the entire planet, especially in the northern hemisphere, where the bulk of the eruption's material ended up. They didn't block the sun completely, but they did block a significant amount of sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. This meant less solar radiation, less heat. Think about it like this: if you put a really fine, thin veil over a window, some light still comes through, but the room gets dimmer and cooler. That's what these volcanic aerosols did to the Earth. They reflected sunlight back into space. This cooling effect wasn't immediate. It took time for the volcanic material to spread out and cover the globe. The full impact started to be felt in late 1815 and then really kicked in during 1816. That's why the summer of 1816 was so cold. It was the peak of Tambora's atmospheric influence. Scientists today understand this connection really well. They study ice cores, which are like frozen time capsules. These cores contain layers of ice from different years, and they can show evidence of past volcanic eruptions, like layers of sulfuric acid. They can also look at tree rings, which show how trees grew each year. Years with cold temperatures and poor growth will have thinner rings. All these things point back to Tambora. Before the Tambora eruption, there had been some smaller eruptions, like Mayon in the Philippines in 1814. These might have added a little to the atmospheric load, but Tambora was the main event, the big one that really tipped the scales. Its eruption was rated a 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index VEI, which is truly enormous. It's estimated it ejected about 100 cubic kilometers of material. That's a massive amount of ash and rock. This wasn't just a local weather phenomenon. It was a global climate disruption. The fact that an event happening thousands of miles away on a remote island could have such a profound and devastating impact on the lives of people in places like New England and Europe really shows you how interconnected our planet's systems are. It shows the sheer power of nature. People in 1816, living through the cold and hunger, had no way of knowing about this distant volcano. They just knew that the world had turned upside down. It took scientists many decades, even more than a century, to fully piece together this incredible story and understand the true cause of that miserable year. The global cooling caused by Tambora hit communities very hard. It led to widespread misery and suffering. The most direct and painful effect was on food. When the weather stays cold and wet and frosts happen in summer, crops just don't grow. This was a massive problem for everyone, but especially for farmers and the poor. In New England, for example, corn crops completely failed. Corn was a staple food. When farmers often planted it in late spring, it needed a good warm summer to grow tall and produce ears. But in 1816, the young corn plants were repeatedly killed by frost. Even if they survived one frost, another would come along. Fields that should have been green and thriving turned brown and stunted. What little corn did manage to grow was often not mature enough to be useful. People who relied on corn for their own food and to feed their animals found themselves in a terrible situation. Other crops suffered too. Wheat, oats, and potatoes also failed or produced very poor harvests. These were the basic foods that people ate every day. With so little food grown, prices for what little was available skyrocketed. Bread, a fundamental part of the diet for many, became incredibly expensive. For families who had little money to begin with, this meant hunger. For many, it meant starvation. People had to eat whatever they could find. They ate wild berries, roots, or even boiled leaves, things they normally wouldn't touch. The lack of food had a ripple effect. Livestock also suffered. Farmers couldn't grow enough hay or grain to feed their cows, pigs, and chickens. Many animals starved or had to be sold off cheaply. This further reduced the food supply as meat and dairy products became scarce. It also meant farmers lost valuable assets, deepening their financial woes. This widespread food shortage led to mass migrations. In the United States, particularly from New England, many families decided they couldn't stay where they were. They packed up what little they had and moved west. They hoped to find better land and more stable weather in places like Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. This movement of people was significant. It helped settle new territories, but it also caused upheaval and hardship for those who had to leave their homes and everything they knew. In Europe, the situation was just as dire, if not worse in some places. Post-Napoleonic Wars, many countries were already struggling. The bad harvest of 1816 pushed things over the edge. In Ireland, the potato crop, so crucial to the diet of many, failed. This led to widespread famine. In France and Germany, the lack of food caused massive price increases and severe hunger. People resorted to eating cats, dogs, and even nettles and other wild plants. The weakened state of the population due to hunger and poor nutrition made people more susceptible to disease. Outbreaks of typhus and cholera became more common. These diseases spread easily among people who were already struggling, living in poor conditions, and lacked proper food. The death toll from both starvation and disease climbed in many regions. The desperation for food also led to social unrest. There were food riots in various parts of Europe. People pushed to the brink of starvation, protested the high prices and the lack of food. They sometimes attacked bakeries and grain warehouses. Governments struggled to respond to the crisis. They often had limited means to distribute aid or control prices effectively. This added to the general instability and fear of the time. And then there was a psychological toll. Imagine the fear and uncertainty. People had always relied on the seasons. They expected summer to be warm. They expected the sun to shine and crops to grow. When this basic cycle failed, it was profoundly unsettling. Many people saw it as a sign from God, a punishment for sins. Religious revivals sometimes broke out as people sought meaning and comfort in their faith amidst the widespread suffering. The year 1816 wasn't just a cold year, it was a year of intense human suffering, upheaval, and a deep sense of despair for many. The year without a summer didn't just cause immediate hardship. It had broader, lasting consequences that rippled through society, affecting economies, encouraging innovation, and even shaping culture and art. It was a true turning point in many ways, forcing people to adapt and react to an unexpected global crisis. Economically, the impact was profound. Farmers were devastated. Many went bankrupt because their crops failed and they couldn't make a living. This led to a wider economic depression in agricultural regions. With less food being produced, not only did prices go up, but there was also less to trade. This slowed down economic activity. Governments struggled to collect taxes from struggling populations, and the overall wealth of communities decreased. It took years for some areas to recover financially from the hit they took in 1816. But crisis can also spur innovation. The desperate need for food and for ways to cope with unreliable weather led to new ideas in agriculture. Farmers started looking for hardier crops, varieties that could withstand colder temperatures or shorter growing seasons. They experimented with different planting times or tried new farming techniques. While the immediate changes might have been small, the drive for resilience in farming practices was definitely sparked by this event. People began to think more about diversifying crops and not putting all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. One really interesting and unexpected innovation was the bicycle, or rather its precursor, the Draisienne or Laufmaschine running machine. Horses were the main mode of transportation then, but with widespread crop failures, the price of oats and other horse feed went way up. It became very expensive, sometimes impossible, to feed horses. This scarcity and high costs of horse feed led Baron Karl von Drais in Germany to invent a human-powered two-wheeled vehicle in 1817. It was basically a wooden frame with wheels that you propelled by pushing your feet on the ground. It was a direct response to the impact of Tambora on the horse population and the need for alternative transport. The gloomy, often miserable weather of 1816 also left a mark on art and literature. You know how people often reflect their surroundings in their creative work? Well, the dark, rainy, and cold summer definitely influenced some famous writers. Lord Byron, a very famous poet, was staying in Switzerland at Lake Geneva in the summer of 1816 with his doctor John Polidori and Percy Bysshe Shelley and Mary Shelley. They had planned to enjoy a nice warm Swiss summer. Instead, they were stuck indoors for days on end because of the constant rain and gloom. To pass the time, they challenged each other to write ghost stories. From this challenge came two very famous works. Mary Shelley, just 18 years old at the time, started writing Frankenstein. The dark, stormy atmosphere of her story, the themes of isolation and creation, are often seen as deeply influenced by the dismal weather and unsettling mood of that year. John Polidori wrote The Vampire, which is considered one of the first modern vampire stories and definitely shaped later vampire literature. These iconic works, born out of a dreary summer, continue to influence us today. The year without a summer also fueled religious fervor and doomsday prophecies. When things go wrong on such a large scale, and people don't have a scientific explanation, they often turn to spiritual ones. Some preachers and religious groups saw the strange weather and crop failures as signs of the end times, or as divine punishment. There was a rise in religious revivalism in some areas, with people seeking spiritual explanations and solace. It was a time of great fear and uncertainty, which often pushes people towards such interpretations. Politically, the crisis added to existing tensions, especially in Europe. The continent was still recovering from the long Napoleonic Wars, which had ended just a year before. Economies were already fragile. The widespread food shortages and social unrest that followed the bad harvests of 1816 put even more strain on governments. It made the post war recovery much harder and contributed to a period of instability in some countries. The sheer desperation of the populace for food made political leaders very aware of the need to manage such crises, even if they didn't know the ultimate cause. So, you see, the effects of that one year were far reaching. It wasn't just about the cold. It was about how societies responded, how people adapted, how it shaped their creative output, and how it left a legacy that we can still trace in history books, in literature, and even in technology. It was a truly transformative event, born from a distant volcanic eruption. The year without a summer in 1816 is a remarkable event in history, and its legacy continues to teach us important lessons. It's not just a footnote, it's a stark reminder of how vulnerable human societies can be to natural phenomena and how interconnected our planet is. For a long time, the cause of the strange weather in 1816 was a mystery. People knew it happened, they remembered the hardship, but they couldn't explain it. It took many years and the development of modern science for the full story to come out. Scientists started to piece together the puzzle in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and especially in recent decades, with better tools like ice core analysis and climate modeling. This slow, careful process of scientific discovery is a significant part of its legacy. It shows how we gradually build our understanding of the world. The event of 1816 and its link to the Tambora eruption became a key case study in climatology and atmospheric science. It helped scientists understand how large volcanic eruptions can affect global climate. It demonstrated the concept of volcanic winter, how ash and aerosols in the stratosphere can cool the planet. This knowledge is crucial for understanding Earth's climate system, both natural variability and the impact of other factors. It showed that the atmosphere is not just local, it's a global system, and something happening on one side of the world can affect the other side. It also highlighted the importance of understanding natural climate variability. While we often talk about human-caused climate change today, 1816 reminds us that the Earth's climate has always changed naturally. Extreme weather events are not new, but understanding the difference between natural changes and human-induced ones is vital. This historical event provides a benchmark, a real-world example of how severe natural climate disruptions can be. The experience of 1816 also offers lessons in resilience and adaptation for human societies. Despite the widespread suffering, people did survive. They found ways to cope, they migrated. They innovated in agriculture, they supported each other in communities. The fact that societies recovered, slowly but surely, from such a devastating year shows the incredible adaptability of humans. It emphasizes the importance of diverse food systems and robust supply chains, something we still strive for today. When one crop failed, people had to find alternatives. This kind of flexibility is a valuable lesson for dealing with future challenges, whether from climate change or other disasters. The memory of 1816 also serves as a warning. While an eruption on the scale of Tambora is rare, it's not impossible. If such an event were to happen again today, even with all our technology and global communication, it would still cause immense disruption. Our food systems are global, but also complex and sometimes fragile. A sudden, widespread agricultural failure could still lead to major economic and social problems. So, understanding past events like this helps us think about preparation and mitigation strategies for potential future extreme events, whatever their cause might be. The stories from that year, the desperate acts, the migrations, the influence on art, all contribute to a richer understanding of human history. It's a reminder that history isn't just about wars and kings, it's also about the fundamental struggle for survival against the forces of nature. Of the year, without a summer, profoundly shaped the lives of millions, altered settlement patterns, and even inspired some of the most enduring works of literature. In the end, 1816 stands as a unique and sobering chapter in the 1800s. It was a year when the familiar rhythm of the seasons broke down. It showed the immense power of a single natural event to reshape the world, and it continues to provide valuable insights into our planet's climate, human resilience, and the intricate web of cause and effect that connects distant corners of the Earth. It truly left a mark, not just on the people who lived through it, but on the course of history itself.